Mic on?
Hello, good afternoon.
Quiet in the chambers, please.
Good afternoon. We're going to start the committee. The Information Technology and Government Affairs Committee will now come to order. We'll begin by announcing that item number 6 will be continued for 2 weeks, as apparently that state legislative bill is going to be gotten amended, so the language is irrelevant until we see the new language. And with that, we will take up the item number 2 first.
Item number 2 is a motion, Perry Smith, and a resolution relative to authorizing the Department of General Services to apply and accept a loan from the California Energy Commission and revising the Energy and Conservation Loan Program Fund Ordinance.
Okay, we're on item number 2. Ms. Perry, did you want to lead with any questions on that item?
Is there somebody, is there anybody here from GSD? Oh, great, okay. Okay, thank you. One quick thing. I mean, I think you'll agree with me that this is a good idea, and I can't imagine anybody would object to this. But I wanted to know if you guys could check on City Hall 4th floor to determine whether or not we can switch to low-level lighting between 6 in the evening to 8 in the morning, and on holidays or weekends or emergency lighting, because we have the light well in there, and it seems like we're wasting energy when we don't need to.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. That's my question.
All right.
There were some corrections or some amendments. I'd like to give you a copy.
One quick question. The state is currently giving a rate of 1% interest rate, but do we have any concerns whatsoever as to whether or not the state's capacity can meet our demand as far as quantity, the amount of money they are willing to lend us?
Nick Pendorf, General Services. Yes, we do, but we are currently getting loans from DWP at 6.5%, and the rate is now gone up. The 1% money is gone, and it's 3%, and that's one of the corrections to the resolution in motion.
So it's 3%, which is still better than 6 point something, better than 8 point something, and better than whatever tomorrow holds. Now, once we access these state funds, is that rate fixed?
Yes.
It is. So they give us a fixed rate.
Yes.
For example, if we would have been able to access funds at the 1% rate, they wouldn't announce that the money that we've been holding onto that now is 3%. We get the rate at which we've accessed it.
Exactly.
Okay. And how are they adjusting that rate? For example, it went from 1% to 3%. What caused that trigger?
They had $20 million in 1% money, and that was exhausted. So now they're on their 3% money.
And how much of that 1% did we get?
I believe that street lighting got some of that, but GSD did not.
Okay. But I can imagine the capacity of the city of Los Angeles to access that money is far beyond $20 million.
Yes.
Okay.
It's still a good idea.
Oh, absolutely. It's always a good idea. It's a good idea to buy a house, but unfortunately most people can't afford it. Okay. Any other questions from the committee?
No, that'll be
Okay. Seeing no more questions
I got
from
some
the committee.
questions,
You do?
Yeah.
Did I say any more?
Anyone? Okay. Just a couple issues on this. How much savings has resulted from General Services energy retrofits to date? And what are the additional ongoing savings from what they've already done?
Actually, there have been technically zero savings because we have borrowed money and we are paying back the loans. Once the loans are paid back, then the city will have sustainable savings.
Okay, when is anticipated to complete the retrofits?
Phase 1, which is 15 of the highest energy using facilities that include the City Hall East and Civic Center, are complete. And we're continuing with Phase 2, which is 485 other city facilities. And that should be completed by 2003, I believe. 2013,
2013?
2013.
So 3 years.
3 more years, right.
And then the $3 million with a 1% return versus $3 million with a 3%, what source of funds is going to be used to repay the loan of $3 million plus the 3% interest on that? Where are we going to get the money to repay the $3 million plus the 3% on top of the $3 million? Where's that money coming from?
Currently, with DWP, we are cash flowing with the city's utility account, the electricity and water account, and the savings are paying back the loans.
No, I'm talking about Water and Power. I'm talking about this loan, one from the state, the new loan we're getting. We're getting a new $3 million loan, which started with 1%, now it's up to 3%, and where are we going to get the money to pay back that loan?
Stephanie Clements, Department of General Services. It's the savings, it's the water and electricity account accrues savings from the energy savings, and that's what pays back the loan. That's how it is with DWP and also with the state loan.
And when do we have to start paying back the loan?
With the state, we start paying back the loan when the work is completed.
So 2013.
It depends on which technical proposals we have placed.
Well, I'm just finding out where we're going to get the money to pay back the loan.
We'll do it in phases and chunks, so we will get as much money and authorization as we can, and when we complete those facilities, we will send in our documentation, and then the loan will start.
So what we've completed so far, whatever we've completed is paying back the loan to Water and Power,
Correct.
but there's 6% interest.
Correct.
Was it 6 or 6.5?
6.5.
6.5, okay. And then the potential savings from the retrofit fully offset the cost of loan plus the interest. When it's fully complete, the savings is going to give us money back.
Yes.
Okay. And who's going to do the work?
City forces.
We're not going to contract out.
We have done a test pilot to contract out, but for right now, city forces will be doing the retrofits in these lighting retrofits program.
General Services?
Correct.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you.
Seeing no more questions from the committee, is there anybody here from the public who'd like to speak on item number 2? We're presently on item number 2, and it's public comment opportunity on item number 2. Seeing no public comment cards before me on item number 2 and none one coming forward, public comment on item number 2 is now closed. With that, it's the action of this committee to adopt the motion. Okay. The motion is adopted.
For clarification, the motion that was amended in committee?
Yes, as amended.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We now go to item number 3.
And item number 3 is a report from the Department of General Services relative to requesting an amendment to the ordinance to extend the expiration of the Office of Public Safety Oversight Committee to February 7th, 2015.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Janet Jackson, City Attorney's Office.
Gary Newton, Chief of the Office of Public Safety.
Okay.
In 2006, as a result of the consolidation of Security Services, an Oversight Committee was created comprised of commissioners from various customer departments. The purpose was to advise the general manager on issues related to the Office of Public Safety. The committee evaluates service levels, reviews policies and procedures, non-categorical use of force investigations, disciplinary summaries, training, and similar items. We found the committee to be extremely useful over the past 4 years, and we're requesting authorization for a 5-year extension of the committee.
The committee was created by ordinance, and the ordinance has a sunset clause. It has been extended once. Originally, the sunset clause was in 2006, and it was extended to 2010. So unless there is a amendment to the ordinance, it will cease. effective February 7th, 2010.
Okay. Any questions in the committee?
No. Recommend approval.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to approve. At this time, we go to public comment. Is there anybody here for public comment on item number 3? Public comment is open on item number 3. Seeing no public comment cards before me on item number 3, no one coming forward. Public comment on item number 3 is now closed. So with that, there's a motion to approve the GSD request to extend the OPSOC sunset date to February 7, 2015, and also that the city attorney amend the appropriate section. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That is approved. So we now go to item number 1.
Item number 1 are reports from the Chief Legislative Analyst's Office and resolutions relative to recommendations for the 2009-10 state legislative program from various departments.
I'm John Wickham with the Office of the Chief Legislative Analyst. With just a brief introduction. Every year, the departments are requested to submit proposals for legislative sponsorships at the state and federal level. These are, in particular, very specific recommendations to help the departments do their work more efficiently and effectively. And so we've received a number of reports. I believe it's up to 12 or 13 reports. The departments of the Zoo, Convention Center, Emergency Management Department, and Neighborhood Empowerment submitted responses that they do not have any recommendations at this time, so they were responsive to the request. Today, we have reports for you on the Community Redevelopment Agency, the Housing Department, the Animal Services Department, ITA, Harbor, Airports, and Transportation. The CLA analysts who prepared those reports are here to describe the recommendations that are put forward, and the departments are here to answer any questions. The Harbor Department could not make it to the meeting today because of the rains. All of the
Because of the rain?
unbelievable flooding down in San Pedro, Wilmington area. That's
Fresh
what-
water or salt water flooded?
Fresh water. They actually were not even allowed to leave the building at the Harbor Department. So it's pretty serious down there. So at this time, would you like to move through the departments alphabetically? So if I've got this right, the first would be airports.
Good afternoon. Chris Concepcion with the Office of the Chief Legislative Analyst. The communications before you, the report and resolutions have been prepared in response to a listing of legislative proposals from the Airport Department, and they specifically had one legislative proposal. They've requested a number of actions which would assist in providing an adequate budget to finance rental car facility improvements at the Los Angeles International Airport. The report and resolution before you recommends action which would provide airport operators the flexibility to set the amount and frequency of their airport rental car customer facility charges, which serves as the basis for their budget for rental car facility improvements at the Los Angeles International Airport. And if you have any questions specific to the report or resolution, the department is here to answer any of those questions that you may have.
When it comes to state legislation, for example, such as AB 491, who monitors that on behalf of the department? Do you have lobbyists? Do you have in-house people? Who watches and tracks and makes sure that you're aware of what's going on legislatively?
The mayor's office is responsible for implementing the city's legislative policies. Our office and the departments work with the mayor's office in tracking legislation that comes forward.
But the airport is a proprietary department.
Yes.
So unlike, for example, the Department of Transportation, the airport could in fact have lobbyists paid for out of its own budget. It wouldn't have a general fund impact, correct?
Mark Adams, Los Angeles Florida Airports. Yes, we do have the firm Shaw, Yoder, Antwi on contract to handle our advocacy work in Sacramento.
Okay, so you have a firm that's based in Sacramento that helps track these kinds of things, make you aware of legislation that could be pending or legislation that's introduced, or certainly legislation that's on its way to the governor to be signed,
Yeah,
correct?
specifically Andrew Antwi, who works for the firm, who's our lead.
Who's that?
Andrew Antwi, who used to be the city's representative in Sacramento. He's our lead advocate now in Sacramento.
But he's contracted directly
He's
with the
contracted,
airport as
he's
well.
he's a partner in the firm that we've contracted with.
And do you have somebody in-house at the airport that actually handles matters in-house for this? or-
Myself and Michael Leonard, who's in the audience.
But that's not your sole responsibility, Sacramento. You do.
No, I handle Sacramento, Washington, City Hall. Yeah,
Man, you watch out for how you're going to be affected across the board.
absolutely.
But the firm you mentioned, they're in Sacramento.
They bring things to our attention, and we, work with them to develop
regulations,
responses.
legislation, all those matters.
Absolutely.
At the state level. Okay. Any questions?
The facility that they're looking at for rental cars, the cost estimated to be between $600 and $800 million.
Yes.
Isn't that high for a rental car facility, which is
The-
basically a parking lot with an office?
It's a very, well, what we're looking at is a large multi-story facility with tens of thousands of parking spaces and maintenance facilities and customer ticket counters and ingress and egress facilities. But yeah, it's basically a very large parking facility that we've with all the necessary elements for the rental car companies to do their jobs on site there. Yeah,
So it would be all consolidated under one umbrella?
all the on-airport rental car facilities would be consolidated in one large facility rather than having it scattered between 7 or 8 different off-airport facilities now. Yes,
And how many facilities do they currently have rental car?
every rental car company has their own, and I believe we have 8 on-airport rental car companies, so they'd all have separate facilities, which having them not consolidated is, of course, kind of tough for customers who have to take the rental car shuttle out to a remote site, and then if they can't find what they're looking for there, they can't go to the next rental car company without taking a bus back to the airport and another one out. The rental car facility was approved in the 2004 master plan. It's a green light project, but now what we're trying to do is find the way to fund the facility, and the $10 per day the $10 per contract fee that the state now authorizes just isn't enough to cover us. So what this will do is allow us to find to set the fee at a level that will be better for complete funding of the facility.
So what would that fee be for the customer?
It will depend on what we will have to go through a public hearing process under the new procedures. We'll have to go, assuming the legislation passes. What we'll do is have a public hearing process to set the fee. It could be a per day fee of $4 to $6. It could be a higher per contract fee. What the state legislation will do is give each airport authority the chance to set the fee based on its market and its needs. And this is consistent with the way it's done in every other state. California is the only one that limits the fee at present.
So what do most other places charge?
Most other places will charge actually a per day fee rather than a per rental car contract fee, anywhere from $4 to $6 to $7 per day on the rental car contract. San Francisco, which has grandfathered legislation, if you will, predating the statewide authority we're now operating under, they charge $17 a day.
A day?
I'm sorry, $17 per contract.
Okay. So if you charge $10 per day versus $10 per contract, that's going to obviously generate a lot more money.
That would be a lot more money. The average car rental contract at LAX is about 4.5 days. So if you were to you could do the math, a $10 per day would be $45 per contract on average, which I don't think anybody's talking about going that high.
Versus $10 as we're charging now.
Right now, it's a flat $10 per rental car contract.
And are the car companies, the rental companies, supportive of this?
Yes, they will be. We're working with them to develop a proposal that they can support in Sacramento. It would be DOA if we didn't have their support. So we're making sure that what we do take to Sacramento is something they can support, and we're meeting with them tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
So, for example, if San Francisco has 4.5-day average, then they're charging about $4 a day. Now, each one
Something
is
like
about
that, yeah.
4.5 days,
Yeah,
$17. So it bounces around $4 or so.
Right.
And that'll be
Per day.
disclosed to the individual renting the car.
Yes.
That'll just be hidden in
Yes.
the fee.
Yes. It's, if you book online, it's right there on the,
So if you
Sorry.
run off the airport, you're going to save yourself some money.
yeah. Although, since, yes, the answer is yes. There's some details where if they were to use our bus system to get to, there would be a prorated charge, but off airport would be a substantially less, yes.
Or say you use the hotel shuttle to go to the hotel and rent it at the hotel, then you'll be saving money there.
That would be true, yeah,
So there will be a way, if people want to save their dollars, there will be an option.
I suppose.
The system in San Francisco has not collapsed, right? It's working?
So far, yeah.
Okay. Most people just use it. It's convenient.
It just depends how frugal you are.
Yep. Most people aren't. Okay. See, no more questions on the airport report. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Next report.
Next is the Animal Services Department.
Animal services.
And for your information, on all of these reports, the CLA has prepared a resolution attached to the departmental reports, and all of our recommendations was for the committee to adopt the resolutions that are attached to the reports, so that these resolutions will go to council.
Good afternoon, Jack Reef from the CLA's office. The Department of Animal Services is proposing to amend the California Health and Safety Code to allow animal licensing agencies the ability to verify rabies vaccinations through modern communications and technology. And currently, the state requires that rabies verification be provided in writing, and the department advises that this requirement dates back to the 1960s and is a burden and is inefficient, and that needs to be updated to allow verification through computers and email. And the department advises that improving the verification process would improve public health, as more dogs would be vaccinated, would reduce animal services administrative duties, as owners would be more likely to do their own data entry for rabies verification online, and an increase of up to 10% for in dog licensing revenue. Thank you.
Okay. So this is legislation that's long overdue, and obviously the legislation has to be amended to be changed so that we can keep up with the modern way in which we track this activity, right, and implement it.
That's correct, council members. Linda Barth from the Department of Animal Services. Council already took action to direct the city attorney to make some changes to our local municipal code to make licensing more streamlined, to make it more user-friendly, more like a business practice, and make it easier for people to go online and self-subscribe for licensing and comply. And a component of that would be that they would put in the lot number, their veterinary name, and other kinds of things that would help verify that they had a rabies vaccination that we could spot check. And the way that the current code of regulations is written, we can't do that. The law says you must have a triplicate certificate with certain boxes and signed by a wet signature. And we've had some initial conversations with county. Certainly their animal control department supports a change like this. We've also spoken to County Public Health and to the state veterinarian, and they are very amenable to the idea that in modern days where someone could go to a computer and easily print sort of a fake rabies certificate, that spending more energy doing spot checks and auditing and verifying is going to get us a higher level of vaccination, and that moving to more modern methods, as we're all familiar, going on the internet, putting in codes from our credit cards, that kind of thing, is probably moving us in a direction that's more business efficient, and therefore more animals get licensed and vaccinated, and allowing us to dedicate resources to verification instead of chasing paper. And that's why we've had these initial conversations, but there is a legislative task or step that needs to be taken, which is why we wanted to introduce it to you for your support.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The next report is from the Community Redevelopment Agency.
Ivania Salvador with the Legislative Analyst Office. Before you are some recommendations from the CRA relative to the 0910 State Legislative Program. The first recommendations are relative to clarifying the economic development activities that can be performed at the agency if the current community redevelopment law, the CRL, is amended to include. These would be financing and construction to green retrofit businesses in redevelopment project areas, providing assistance to small business incubators, retaining or expanding employment in redevelopment project areas or for redevelopment purposes, retaining or expanding manufacturing and industrial jobs, allowing industrial and manufacturing uses with or without development or rehab, as well as the CRA is also requesting specific authorization to be included in the CRL that would allow them, at the request of the City Council, to apply for and carry out federal or state grant administration inside or outside a redevelopment project area. The second category where the CRA has requested amendments would be to the definition of blight. Currently, the definition of blight does not include public housing projects that are 50 years old. Additionally, they would like to include areas that are unhealthy for persons to live or work by. This would include high incidences of obesity, diabetes, and other diseases which are affected by poor access to fresh food, or high incidences of asthma, lung cancer, other respiratory diseases which are affected by air pollution or the presence of contaminated properties. Additionally, areas that suffer from lack of parks and open space would also be included in the definition of blight. Again, the definition of the economic development activities would allow the CRA agency to include these types of work projects in their work program and budget. The addition of the blighted definitions would allow the CRA, as part of a redevelopment plan amendment or the creation of a redevelopment plan, to make those findings and then, as a result, be able to include those types of activities in their work program and budget. We believe that these changes would not affect the council oversight ordinance, and the council will continue to review the budgets, the grants, and the work programs of the agency.
Ms. Perry, you have a question?
Yeah, maybe Jenna may remember this, but I remember when we implemented and adopted the not the Central Business District City Center plan, and then the county, I think, sued us on the definition of blight, and I can't recall whether we prevailed or not ultimately. Do you remember?
Councilmember, the county sued the agency over the existence of blight. Whether blight under the current definitions could be documented in the proposed city center and central industrial redevelopment project areas.
So also, what was the outcome on that particular?
They were mixed. As far as
we settled?
Yes, there were settlements.
And I just want, well, the reason I raise that is because when I heard where we were going, I'm wondering whether we're heading in a direction that will invite greater issues upon us from the county. I don't know.
These are areas that are currently not addressed in the community redevelopment law. They're areas that we believe that the city and the redevelopment agency would like to use existing tools to address. Questions of public health. The council and council member, you've taken leadership in this area yourself. Mm-hmm. There are things that we have thought of that we'd like to do that we can't currently do.
Well, this is worth a try. Okay, thanks.
Okay, any questions?
Yeah, I have some questions on this. The high incidence of obesity, diabetes, heart disease, other diseases which are affected by poor access to fresh food. Now, we've got locations where you can get fresh food. Sometimes the issue is not accessibility, but it's cost. So when you look at this process, physical blight, we know what that looks like. It's very easy, it's very tangible. But when you go to a community that has fast food restaurants, and that's what people can afford, for Jack in the Box right now, it has a big hamburger, 2 tacos, and a drink for $3 and change, and people don't have a lot of money to buy food, or they could go to the store and buy some fresh food, since we do have markets throughout the city, but the fact is it's an economic situation. How does this deal with the reality that people want to have healthy food, but they can't afford it?
Good afternoon, Councilman. I'm Jenna Gieliger. I'm with the Community Redevelopment Agency. I'm also the point person for a joint effort of the city and the CRA on a food retailer incentive program. First, I just want to say about this general proposal, part of it is really just a proactive policy statement on behalf of the city and the CRA, in that there are a number of things that we can do to support bringing in, fresh fruits and vegetables, and we'll continue to do those things. To your point about costs and things, I think what this opens us up to do is have more authority to look at some of these broader issues. We're already working on some partnerships with public health organizations to look at the barriers to fresh food. So one of them can be cost, if it's an issue. I think also one of them is education, public health outreach, and educating people about making healthy choices. It could even have to do with community gardens and growing fresh fruits and vegetables, which is more cost effective, if you can do it and find the space. So I don't think we don't have a direct answer on that, but I think on a policy level, if the definition of blight includes these items, we have a little broader authority, assuming it's within our implementation plans, to start looking at some of those issues. And for the most part, we're doing it. I mean, we're not really precluded from doing it, but we're trying to make a very proactive statement that this is something that's part of our communities and part of what we should be doing.
I can understand that.
I want to clarify it
I just want to clarify one thing. The fresh food, the food issue is not one of choosing to buy fast food versus going to buy healthy food. There, at least in my district, I mean, you're probably in a different situation. Yeah, probably. There aren't a lot of places to buy fresh food, and that has begun to change because we've worked hard to make a change. But we haven't had a new grocery store in my district in 12 years. Now we have 20th and Central. We got another one coming, but those are the first 2 in 12 years. So there aren't, a lot of options. People will eat what they have before them, and that's basically it.
And I have no problem if the CRA wants to help a market establish in an area for the city of Los Angeles. In my area of the valley, we've got Vallarta, which is an independent market, which does extremely well. They pick you up from home. They take you to the market. They take you back. They really cater to the customers. They're doing extremely well. Stater Brothers approached me. They want to put the presence in Los Angeles. So there are markets that we could hopefully assist to establish a presence in the city of Los Angeles to accommodate the folks. But then when I look at high incidence of asthma, lung cancer, and other respiratory disease, if people smoke, they might get lung cancer. Again, that's public education. And how are we going to, with the limited dollars that we have, and I've got CRA projects in my district, some are doing well, some aren't doing so well, but CRA gets a lot of criticism for getting involved in spending a lot of money and not seeing a lot of action. And I know Ms. Perry's district in the area south of there, which I frequent when I'm working my LAPD assignment, there's a lot of need to improve that area of the city of Los Angeles, as well as in the San Fernando Valley in North Hollywood, along Laurel Canyon, where it looks like a disaster zone because the CRA apparently is in some involvement with a developer, and all these buildings are now vacant, and looks like it's a very blighted area. Laurel Canyon south of Victory as you approach the Hollywood freeway. So that's what I'm looking at for CRA to do. But when it goes into this arena, if you talk about investing in businesses, if you're talking about, I don't think CRA is in the business of educating people what to eat, how to stay healthy. But if you're going to take those dollars and invest in improving the business climate in the area, whether it be a market or something else. But I think that we need to focus on the reality of what the CRA is there for. Take a blighted area, but if we extend it out to obesity and heart disease and lung cancer, public education is not the CRA's responsibility. The CRA's responsibility is to improve blighted areas. Plain and simple. When you got a decayed area, you're supposed to come there, clean it up, and make it work. So I want to make sure this is going to tie in with that endeavor versus educating people. How to eat healthy should start at home, should start with school. That's where it should start. But if you want to establish markets in those areas, I'm all for it. But the CRA needs to understand, what is your goal and what is your mandate as far as responsibility to the taxpayers.
Well, I can give an example of how we tie in with public health. I was fortunate enough to find out we got an interview with the Department of Public Health for a grant we just applied for. We've partnered with a public health organization as well as a kind of a project management organization, Lonnie, to request funding to administer a convenience store conversion program. We at the CRA would fund the physical improvements to convenience stores. That would include facade program, which we typically do, which addresses blight. We would be putting in refrigeration, which right now we're just barely able to do under redevelopment law because we call it a commercial rehab. These partner organizations are going to do the public health, not us. We won't be funding it, but they'll be doing the educational piece and outreach to local schools and working with the community to identify which stores we should be targeting. And then we've got some assistance to help the businesses take part. So I think that's a perfect example of how we can partner and still do what redevelopment traditionally does, but include these. And again, I think this language is saying programs like these are important to our communities, and I don't have a good example on air pollution. I mean, I always think about recreational space and parks when it comes to that, but I think that's a good example of what we do when we blend these, and we're trying to make a statement that it is something that we do. And I do believe it's important in our communities that we do this work. And when you talk to our CACs and PACs and our neighborhood councils, they want us involved in their health clinics, and they want us involved with doing that work.
But you're going to do the physical, and then someone else is going to do the educational.
Yes, but we're taking the lead on
Right.
putting that together. And this is, again, a positive affirmation that this is something we can do.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for the explanation, because it doesn't really state it here when you're talking about some of the issues that you're going into.
No more questions? Thank you. Sierra?
Great. Our next report is from the Harbor Department. CLA staff are here to explain the Harbor Department's request.
But the people from the Harbor Department are not here.
They could not make it. One option is to hold this for your next committee. Another option would be to move this to council, and then we'll make sure that the Harbor Department is here to answer questions in council.
The latter is likely what we're going to do.
Chris Concepcion again with the CLA's office. The report and resolutions before you have been prepared in response to a listing of legislative proposals from the Harbor Department. And our office, while the Harbor Department submitted 7 proposals, our office recommends the adoption of 4 proposals submitted by the department, which are currently before you. The 3 proposals that were not selected, while they are of merit, we believe that those items would be more suitably handled through direct advocacy as opposed to legislation. The 4 proposals before you cover topics such as expansion of the eligible uses of the federal port security grant, actions related to further advancement of the clean truck program, implementation of necessary trade incentives, and actions relative to the creation of a national freight program. As indicated before, the Harbor Department is not with us, so I can take any basic questions you have, but if you do have any technical questions, we can pass those along to the Harbor Department to report to you tomorrow or personally to your offices.
And all along, port security grants are constantly being applied for?
Correct. Every year they issue a new federal port security grant.
Okay, thank you very much for that report.
Next, we have the Los Angeles Housing Department.
Good afternoon, Brian Randall, Chief Legislative Analyst Office. The Los Angeles Housing Department has provided 3 legislative proposals for inclusion into the 2009 to 2010 federal and state legislative programs. The first proposal is to require federally insured institutions to provide secondary government lenders, such as the city, 60 days notice prior to recording a notice of default on completed multifamily developments. According to the department, such a requirement on the federal level would provide the city with time to develop and implement an action plan to protect the city's investments in affordable housing. The second proposal would extend or make permanent existing state law that requires, prior to a termination of a subsidy contract, expiration of rental restrictions, or prepayment on an assisted housing development, that property owners give the tenant and public agencies a 1-year notice of the proposed change. The department reports that it enforces the notice law with its affordable housing preservation program, and extending or making permanent the existing law would allow the department to promote the preservation of affordable housing and expand affordability, among other actions. The third proposal would require the installation of tamper-resistant electrical receptacles or outlets in all existing dwelling units in the state. The requirement to require such tamper-resistant outlets in new construction is currently being considered by the State Department of Housing and Community Development. LAHD recommends that the state go beyond the requirement to require such outlets in all new dwelling units and instead require that such outlets be installed in all existing dwelling units. LAHD reports that such a requirement is consistent with the city's goals to ensure tenant affordability and habitability in its housing, and the new requirement, if adopted by the state, could be enforced with the LAHD systematic code enforcement program. The department also recommends that the city rescind its prior action to seek direct tax credit allocation regarding low-income housing tax credits. The department reports that upon further analysis, it has determined that such a proposal would result in additional costs rather than benefits to the city, as under a direct tax credit allocation, the city would be competing for such credits in a much smaller pool. We recommend support of the department's legislative proposals, and the department is here to answer any questions you might have.
The tamper-proof outlets, that's a child safety issue or fire safety issue?
Marisol Romero with the Housing Department. That proposal was submitted to us from the Systematic Code Enforcement Program. They routinely inspect rental properties or properties with 2 or more units on the lot, and they've identified that as a need. Through anecdotal evidence, they've identified that children often are injured by inserting objects like paper clips and pens, and so they thought that this was an improvement for the properties to protect child safety.
So it's a child safety issue?
Yes, it is.
New construction. New construction only?
The state proposal is for new construction. The proposal before you is for all properties, all units, existing and new.
Is there a cost estimate on that for existing owners?
Not at this time. We're working on that.
Okay. Now, that would be for the state to allow local jurisdictions to impose that, correct?
Correct.
Not a state-imposed requirement. It wouldn't be a state-imposed requirement. It would allow local jurisdictions to impose it locally?
Yes.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Terrific. Our next report is from the Information Technology Agency.
Mandana Khatib Shady with the CLA's office. The Information Technology Agency has submitted 2 new proposals for the 2009-10 state and federal legislative programs. One which includes supporting and or sponsoring legislative and administrative actions that would maintain city control of public right-of-ways as it relates to telecommunications, and another which utilizes unrestricted grant loan funds. With respect to the first proposal concerning local right-of-way control, the Federal Communications Commission is currently working on a national broadband plan relative to broadband deployment. ITA has advised the CLA that as part of this plan, the FCC may adopt rules or commence rulemakings and make recommendations to Congress that could preempt existing law and significantly impact the city's control over right-of-ways. ITA's second proposal recommends support and or sponsorship of legislation that does not impose capital cost restrictions on grant loan funding opportunities for local governments. The ability to use grant or loan funding to support staff as well as operating expenses for pending and proposed projects would be particularly beneficial to the city during our current economic situation. In light of these 2 proposals submitted by ITA, the CLA recommends to adopt 2 separate resolutions to include in the city's 09-10 state and federal legislative programs positions to support and or sponsor state, federal legislation, and administrative actions that would permit the city to maintain local control of its public right-of-ways and airwaves as it pertains to telecommunications in a manner favorable to the city, its residents, and private businesses, and that does not restrict the use of state and federal loans and grants to local entities to allow such funds to be utilized for operational and staff support in addition to capital costs.
Anything you want to add, William?
No, actually, William Imperial, ITA. Good afternoon, council members. Councilmember Cardenas. Signed. Actually, no, I think that was well put with regard to the broadband plan. The FCC intends to issue their broadband plan on March 17th. We've been told by various organizations and our own outside legal counsel that the National Broadband Task Force of the FCC is proposing, or at least entertaining, some preemption of local control of public rights-of-way that could impact the city's control of its streets and in fact, airwaves. And we're looking at that issue. So a lot is to be determined on March 17th when the report is issued. But we want to ensure that the city maintains control of its public rights-of-way. There are 4 issues in particular that I think that Mondana addressed to you that I could go over, but I don't think that that's necessary at this time. With regard to the second portion of the proposals that we've put forth, I think it's important for the city to take up a general legislative principle that Randy Levin, our general manager, asked us to put together so that it would make sense to the council and to the mayor, and that is that with most of the ARA funding, the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act, the stimulus fund package monies, a lot of that money is being tied up in capital cost funding only, and that is really a hindrance to a lot of what we can put forward. We're seeing that in council every Friday, and we have to come up with our own funding for our operational expenses. So we would like that lifted, at least temporarily, and maybe even made retroactively where legally feasible to do that, so that when we put in these applications, we can get money for sustainable job creation and development. And I think that that's an important legislative principle that ITA is asking that the council take up, just as a general broadly based legislative proposal for everyone going forward.
And what's the status of the Miller Van Eaton is doing some work with the city?
Well, I'm real happy to announce that just about 4 hours ago I was told that the city attorney has signed off on a $40,000 extension of the law firms of Miller Van Eaton based in Washington, D.C. that does a lot of our FCC work. They just signed off on the extension of the contract. I've been getting emails on that. So it's in the mail to MVE for signature, and it looks good going forward at the moment. I think that we will exceed the $40,000 if we do this broadband grant work before the FCC and maybe Congress and the President. So we need to look at that going forward, and we'll bring that back to you as we do that work.
When it comes to the FCC, what role do they play relative to the City of LA?
Well, they act as the outside legal counsel to our city attorney's office, and they work really hand in glove with the Information Technology Agency and the Bureau of Engineering now to uphold local control of the public rights-of-way before the FCC in terms of their positions that they take for the City of Los Angeles. They also inform the city of any developments at Congress that could impact any of the workings that we're doing right now. And I'm also pleased to let you know that, and I know that you're aware of this, Councilman Cardenas, that MVE was responsible in part for the $7.5 million grant that was just given to the City of Los Angeles for its public-facing computers. We just got that grant last week. The mayor had Secretary Strickland of the Department of Commerce here at one of our worksource centers, and it was a very good moment for ITA and for MVE as well, by the way. And the City Attorney's Office did help us in that. We need to acknowledge that as well.
Good. And in-house, what staff or expertise do we have to help monitor all this?
Well, you're looking at part of it, of the expertise. We monitor it. I monitor personally, along with 2 or 3 other members of our staff, but I'm principally responsible for monitoring the developments at the state and federal level.
When it comes to regulatory, technical, and legal services, do we tend to contract that out, or we have experts in-house who can handle it to the nth degree?
Well, at the Public Utilities Commission level and the FCC level, it is contracted out. But most of what we can do in-house, we rely on our City Attorney's Office to do. But there is a great deal of work at the FCC that's going on that could negatively impact the city going forward with that broadband plan.
Okay. And also, it's important to keep the legislative body apprised of all these regulatory changes, so regular updates would be appreciated.
We intend to do that. The ITA has allowed me to great leeway to work with the National Association of Telecommunications Officers and Administrators, who has their pulse on Congress and the FCC all the time.
Okay. Any questions? Okay.
I know that a lot of money that we should be receiving we're not receiving because of the federal rules and because of the state rules. They seem to have stripped that opportunity for us to make some pay the general fund. Now you say they're going into the streets where we have the cable in the streets. They're trying to restrict that also?
Yes, in particular with regard to the siting of telecommunications or telephone facilities. If the
On public roadways and highways.
Correct, and in our alleyways,
Right.
and in our buildings, by the way, and top of our poles. But wherever they could possibly site them, where the public, where the council and the mayor has control of those public rights-of-way, they want to basically dictate to the city that they should allow that, and dictate the rules and a shot clock or time period in which the city must allow it.
And any compensation to the city for that
Well,
right-of-way?
it always has to be reasonable, and there's different prices charged by different cities. Some cities don't even charge because they don't have the, by the way, they're small and they don't have the staff to monitor it, so they just let them come on their poles or whatever they need to do. And it occurs. We're doing a study on that right now. But for the city of Los Angeles, where you have Homeland Security issues as well as the staff to monitor it, it's a contentious issue right now for us.
Okay, thank you. I know I had a meeting with Randy regarding some of these issues recently, so we're going to be doing Wi-Fi in public buildings. That was the grant you referred to? Is that the grant?
The grant is for public-facing computers in our public libraries, includes and our rec and parks, and also at our work source centers, where people go to find jobs.
Right, right.
And so all those computers will be upgraded, and new computers will be added to the mix.
And internet access at every
And it will include broadband internet access, not dial-up. Yes.
And that was
Yes.
the federal grant?
That was a federal grant, and it's for the
$7 million?
$7.5 million.
Okay, great, thank you.
Thank you.
And, yeah, it was a lot of work over many years. Thank you very much. But also, how many points of access are we talking about, facilities, with that grant?
Over 188 actual points of entry, but in terms of the facilities, that many. If not more. We're trying to broaden that right now. We're going to the second round of grant funding, and so we're hoping to build on that.
Yeah, there's still something called the digital divide in Los Angeles, and it's alive and well here, unfortunately, where you have some parts of town where people have true access to the internet and they have all the bells and whistles, and other parts of the community that they're really sharing one computer at the local library or what have you, or a handful of computers, but yet they're drawing, tens of thousands of households. So it's really sad, but there's a large step in that direction. So thank you to the department for all that wonderful work. All right,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our final report today regards the Department of Transportation proposal.
Do you have that one in here? You did something with it.
Annie Danino from the CLA's office. DOT is requesting that the city include in its 2009-10 state legislative program support for legislation or administrative action to reduce the number of unpaid parking citations required before a vehicle may be impounded. Currently, state law provides that a vehicle must be issued 5 or more parking citations before it may be impounded. DOT reports that this number is unacceptably high, and in the alternative proposes that state law be amended to reduce the number of unpaid parking citations to either 4 or 3. DOT reports that reducing the number of citations required before impounding can occur would increase compliance with city parking regulations and accelerate the amount of parking fines collected by the city. And I have DOT here in case you guys have any questions.
Okay. Now, what is the current allowable, or shall I say, what does the law allow for someone to accumulate parking tickets up to how many?
Rudy Carrasco, Department of Transportation. Currently, the number is set at 5 or more unpaid citations, and at that point, the citizen is notified that their vehicle is subject to being impounded and/or booted. That gives the department the authority to should we identify a vehicle on city streets that has 5 or more unpaid citations, we can either place a Denver boot on it, or we can impound and remove the vehicle immediately from the street.
And the objective is to get it reduced to how many?
The objective is to reduce it to 3 or more. That would allow us to manage our scofflaw file, better manage our scofflaw file. It would also allow us to take advantage of newly introduced technology, and once again, it would also improve our ability to collect unpaid citations and increase revenue.
Okay. So the increase in revenue, if it went from 5 to 3, the guesstimation today is it would increase collectible revenue by as much as $61 million?
$61 million represents the base. That's what's available to be collected. We normally collect approximately 23% of the base.
Wow.
It says the collection rate is approximately 97%.
The 23% represents what we can collect as from an operational perspective. 23% of the vehicles that are on our scofflaw file, we normally are able to apprehend 23% of those. Now, the collection rate, I'm not sure, the 96% that you're referring to?
97%?
97%?
Approximately 97%? What's that?
I can answer that. Ms. Peter Hilton, the 96% represents the amount of recovery from the actual impounded vehicles. What happens is once the vehicle is impounded, within 10 days of it being impounded, 72% of the citizens pay for the scofflaw, all the fines plus the impound fees. When you take it over the 42-day lien period before the vehicle is sold, we recover about 96% of every scofflaw vehicle that's been impounded.
And you now have the computers in some of the vehicles where they can drive down the street and the license plate readers and pick that information up. You don't have to check a sheet. It's just automatic through the system.
Yes, sir. We currently have 22 vehicles in our fleet that are equipped with the license plate recognition software that allows us to travel down the street and recognize these vehicles in the scofflaw manner, which makes us much more efficient. In the previous environment, it required two officers manning a vehicle. In the LPR environment, we can do it with one officer.
And it just flags up when it spots one that is in violation.
That's correct.
And so you only requested one amendment, one new law, or one revision. Have you done anything with the trailers that we've been complaining about, the advertising trailers that are
parked on the street?
Parked on the streets for over 72 hours, and they move them an inch or move them a foot. And I know that it says 72 hours they have to move, but they don't give a distance. It just says they have to move, so they'll move them an inch, 2 inches, 3 inches, which then brings them into compliance for another 72 hours. And we get a number of complaints. And with the wind and the rain today, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of them swept into traffic and creating traffic hazards. Why haven't we done any legislative changes in that particular arena, which is a huge nuisance in the San Fernando Valley?
Yes, sir. That's something that's it's on the radar. It's something that we've looked at. This has been our primary focus for this year.
Is it too late to put anything else in, John?
If you would like to make a proposal today for the committee, then
I'd like to do that. I'd like to make a proposal. I don't know if it's affected your area yet.
Yeah, sure.
But they seem to be prevalent in the San Fernando Valley, where they're advertising trailers. They park for extended period of times. We posted signs, no one hitch trailers, thought that would correct the problem. It's done nothing. They'll park the trailer right under the no one hitch trailer sign. Something we can add to the Department of Transportation, request for legislative, in that arena, that I don't have to move it for a distance or whatever, but whatever we have on the books now is not working. And DOT obviously is aware of the problem, and whatever they come up with a recommendation. I know we're looking also at billboard ordinance to include those in the billboard ordinance to ban them. But if you're familiar with what I'm talking about,
The unhitched trailers, is that what you're talking about? Yeah.
Unhitched, but advertising.
Right.
Not like a boat or
It's on the side of the streets.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and they do advertisements on them. I saw one with 5 different ads on it. I was out over the weekend taking some pictures for a program we're going to be doing in council. But if DOT can come up with something to add to this regarding those unhitched advertising trailers on city streets, because no unhitched trailer sign is not working, we need to do something else to get rid of it. We receive ton of complaints constantly from the people. And again, today, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of you folks out there impounding them because they're now swept into traffic hazard. They don't weigh very much. The water comes down, it sweeps it right into traffic. So there's probably a whole bunch going to the impound lot, but it creates a huge hassle. So whatever we can do between now and the time this goes.
This will be in council tomorrow, so we will work over the remainder of the days and prepare a draft resolution for you and for council consideration tomorrow.
Perfect.
At your instruction.
Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you much.
Thank you. That's an amendment to the CLA report?
Yes.
This is the end of the reports from the departments. Today, we have some additional reports that will be available for your next meeting.
Okay. All right, so those are reports for today. Is there anybody here to speak on item number 1? Public comment is now open on item number 1. Seeing and hearing no public comment cards before me on item number 1, we will close public comment for item number 1. With that, we'll approve the CLA report as amended. Okay. All right. Now we move to item number 4.
John Wickham with the Office of the Chief Legislative Analyst. This is a response.
For the record, let me read item number 4 into the record, and that is a Chief Legislative Analyst report in response to a motion from Gruel Smith relative to the creation of a San Fernando Valley Council of Governments and the development of a proposed Joint Powers Authority document.
John Wickham, CLA. This is a report in response to motion Gruel Smith concerning formation of the San Fernando Valley Council of Governments. There have been negotiations for the last year or so with the cities of Glendale, Burbank, San Fernando, and Santa Clarita, as well as the County of Los Angeles, about creating such an organization with the assistance of several San Fernando Valley organizations, civic organizations, FICA and Mulholland Institute, et cetera. The proposal before you would create the COG. The cities of Glendale, Burbank, and Santa Clarita have already approved the JPA that's proposed. San Fernando is considering the JPA tonight. And what this would do is, let's see, all of the members for the City of Los Angeles, all of the members of the City Council that represent the San Fernando Valley would be a voting member on the COG. Yes, sir.
And have we determined how many council members that would be? That would be 7 districts, council districts?
That's a total of 7, according to the
and if it happened to be 8, not that it is, would we have a quorum problem? Or the fact that this is a Joint Powers Authority, we wouldn't have a, because they're agendized meetings, et cetera?
Yeah, we've set up quorum rules to ensure that there's no dominance by any one party. So there must be a representative from the county to ensure quorum. There must be several council members to ensure quorum, and there must be members from the other cities to ensure quorum. So it's not that you'll have 8 city council members, you have a quorum, and no one else. So the intent is to ensure that all of the constituent groups are represented.
Yeah, but I'm referring to a quorum issue of the City Council of Los Angeles, which is 15 members. If we had to happen to have coincidentally 8 City of Los Angeles council members, because say 8 districts touch and or serve the valley, then would that have been a quorum problem?
That should not be a quorum problem, because when you attend a COG meeting, you are representing the city on the COG. You're not taking action as the city of Los Angeles. So you shouldn't have those issues. The city attorney could provide details on that there as well, but you should not. The same thing would happen here if Mr. Zion and Mr. Cardenas, you're both at the meeting, you're a quorum of the ITGA committee, you would not have that same problem.
Yeah, because some people get real crazy about that. But the thing is misinterpreting it. I know we need to be diligent and respect, the quorum matters. It's a serious matter. It's a legal matter. But I mean by getting crazy about it, some people, they really overstate the relationship between our limitation and our responsibility. So I appreciate your answer.
Let's see, the initial cost for participating in the COG is $10,000 per city. It's a set flat rate for every member of the COG.
No, you say every member city.
Every member city.
Member.
Yes.
So it's 10 grand.
So it's 10 grand for City of Los Angeles, or 10 grand for City of San Fernando.
Every member government.
Yeah, every member governing
agency. Because the county's not a
agency.
city. We're not San Francisco.
Exactly.
They're a city county. They're
Exactly.
special. But here we have the county would be 10,000, even though they have 2 members. And then we have 4 other cities that have a member each, but that would be 10,000 per city. And then we have the city of Los Angeles that apparently has 7 members, but it would be 10,000 total, not
Exactly.
10,000 times 7.
Exactly.
Depends how you read that. If you read it, you could interpret 10,000 times 7.
So basically, the beginning fee budget would be $60,000.
For total for the COG, yes.
Yes. Okay.
That's about it.
Okay. We have some cards. You want to go to the cards or questions?
Questions.
Yes, question.
Couple questions. On the issue of the COG, how often would they have meetings? Who does all the administrative work, putting it together? Where will they take place? Has that all been worked out?
That will all be worked out. If it works as the other COGs do, the city is also a member of the South Bay Cities Council of Governments and the West Side Cities Council of Governments. Each of the member agencies provides their staff. So as the CLA, for example, assists with the West Side Cities Council of Governments and for the City of Los Angeles. So those staffs help with the technical matters of setting up the meetings and such.
So does each city have that kind of participation?
They will.
Large or small?
Yes, they will.
Okay. And then how often do they have the meetings?
It depends on the COG. The other COGs meet on every 2 months. If this COG would like to meet every month, or if they would like to meet quarterly, it's up to the organization. It's a JPA, it's an independent agency, so they will set their own rules.
And as far as appointing alternatives to attend, if you've got 7 council members here that are members, they can all designate someone on a rotating basis, or do they assign someone permanently? Because if, say they have their meetings on Wednesdays, Tuesdays, or Fridays at 11 o'clock, obviously it's not going to work for us.
Exactly.
Say they have meetings at night. It may not work for the other cities because they have their council meeting at night.
Yes.
So how does that work when you have the conflict of who's going to attend and why they're going to attend? I sit on SCAG. Myself, Mr. Parks, and Mr. Smith are basically the only ones that show. We're all members of SCAG. We were in committee, so I'm trying to figure out how that aspect works.
Yes, we will have to revisit the issue. Each city will be able to set up their process for establishing alternates according to the needs of their city. So some cities may want to designate other council members to be the alternates. So you would have one council member who's the designated member and then the designated alternate. For the city of Los Angeles, with 7 council members as designated members, you may want to find another set of individuals who would be designated alternates. You might want to appoint commissioners, or you might want to appoint your chiefs of staff. That is a policy that this committee will have to revisit. If you choose to become a member of the JPA, then we'll have to come back with that policy on what the City of Los Angeles process will be. We'll adopt that and report that to the JPA.
Okay, so would our rules be different than the other member city rules? Could each city have their own rules on?
Yes, each city would have its own rules for designating alternates.
Okay. And then the money, what does the money go for? The 10,000 from each city, the 60,000, what does that go for?
Yeah, it can be for hiring consultants to do traffic studies. It could be hiring a lobbyist to track an issue with a state agency. It could be hiring a facilitator for your meetings, hiring a webmaster for a COG website.
Could we use our city staff to do some of those activities, or does it have to be separate and independent?
You can use city resources to assist the COG for some of those things.
But normally on issues of notice, things like that, we don't use. I mean, I'm on the JPA, Grand Avenue, and on South Coast Air Quality Management District, and it's better to have a disinterested third party to do public notices and post meetings and set them. Otherwise, you get into issues of perceived conflict.
But that was my concern, because $60,000 is not a lot to run any kind of entity.
Yeah.
And if you do the mailings and this and that and the other, the technical aspects is what I'm looking for. I'm not that familiar with COGS. I've never been a participant in one.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea to bring everyone together to make it work better, make it work in a cohesive fashion.
Yeah.
I was just concerned about the technical aspect. And what if the COG goes in one direction and the jurisdiction goes in another direction?
That's
How
perfectly
does that-
fine. It's perfectly acceptable.
So you could vote on the COG one way, like the Valley wants to secede, and then you come here in council and you're not supporting that.
That could be the case.
Well, when I see David Fleming, I always think of the past history.
Let it go.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Let it go, son. Let it go. Let it go.
Do you have any questions?
No, I just was going to say that, I'm also on the Metro Expo Authority too, and what we did there is I have an alternate, it's Bill Rosendahl, Bernard has an alternate, I think it's Paul Koretz.
Yes.
And the reason that they were chosen as our alternates is because they're in the next phase of the project anyway. So we're in the first phase and they're in the second phase. So when Mr. Wickham talks about, cities choosing differently, it's based on their needs and their own agenda. That principle can apply here. Whatever the demographics are, the issues that you're dealing with, you kind of look at your alternates based on what your community needs, and you choose accordingly.
Like I say, I'm not that familiar with them, so that's why part of my question's out of education.
This is a unique case because we have so many city council members who will be sitting on this COG.
But on the notice requirement, on posting, things like that, the elected officials should stay out of that.
Yes.
Yeah. And their staffs. Yeah, because if you make a mistake, then everybody thinks you did it for a reason,
Leave that to Mr. Fleming and
Yeah.
the fine folks from the Valley.
Okay. We have public comment cards on item number 4. I'll begin as they appear before me on this desk. Bob Scott or Robert L. Scott?
What's that name? Robert Allen?
Greg Lip.
Robert L.
Lip or Lippy? Lippy? Greg Lippy?
Famous Greg Lippy.
Bruce Ackerman?
Another
We
notorious
have 4
man
chairs?
from the Valley.
We have 4 chairs. Yeah, we do have 4 chairs.
Yeah, one more.
Okay, and then we have David Fleming.
Mr. Chairman, council members, I'm Robert Scott. I'm the founding chair of the Economic Alliance, past president of the LA City Planning Commission back when we only had 5 commissioners. And I'm here in support of the motion, obviously. I just wanted to cover, for those of you who may not be familiar with it, the fact that 15 years ago we started something called the Economic Alliance of the San Fernando Valley. And there's nothing like a disaster to bring people together. That was a response to the Northridge earthquake and recovery, and also a response to the aerospace downturn and the loss of good manufacturing jobs within the San Fernando Valley. And I think we've done an able job. We've been strategic partners with the City of Los Angeles and the cities of Glendale, Burbank, San Fernando, and Calabasas through all of that. We brought these cities together in a kind of unprecedented, cross-jurisdictional, interagency way that allowed us to do things that we had never really done before. And I can tell you from sitting on the Planning Commission, and you get the maps, I'm sure, too, where you have this little gray area of anything that's not Los Angeles. Well, actually, Burbank, you don't see those gray areas when you're traveling between cities. When you're driving into San Fernando, sometimes you can't tell the difference. But frankly, people really admire what some of the smaller cities are doing. Some of the smaller cities envy the larger city of Los Angeles and what it's able to do. And we have been able to build these partnerships, but for all intents and purposes, they've been somewhat informal. Our idea here is to bring together the leadership of the various cities in a way that they can collaborate, they can share best practices and best ideas, and we don't have to stop our thinking at the city line in every case. That we can look at the region that we call the San Fernando Valley, which incidentally is visible from outer space, and be able to say we can do some planning for this area. We can look at the 101, the 405, the 118, the 210. We have a lot of highways out there that you rarely hear talked about because they only exist in the San Fernando Valley. So there are a lot of things that happen. There are also partnerships that we have not availed ourselves of, working with people in the North County on Highway 14, on goods movement, on transportation, on the possibility that, never was realized with the Palmdale Airport, but things that maybe could have happened if we had a group like this COG put together at the time that this was being considered. Might still be a possibility. Some people think it's far out, but still, it's one of those things. Back in 2003, with the able leadership of Richard Alarcon, among others, we created something called the San Fernando Valley Statistical District. That was accepted by the City of Los Angeles, and at the city's request, the State of California approved AB 2207, which gave us also a state designation under Government Code 11093, which is the San Fernando Valley Statistical District. Allows us to get information based upon that little pool of information. We also got the County of Los Angeles to pass a resolution to ask the Department of Census to create a Census County Division that Census County Division now allows us, as of 2010, to be able to get census data from the ACS, American Community Survey, on an annual basis, again, for this basin. So we can look at it, we can understand how things are changing, moving, and how to make things work better. So ultimately, it made perfect sense. The Skag Regional Council approved the idea of creating a San Fernando Valley subregion, and of course, we need some sort of an entity to occupy and operate that subregion. And we've had very good success, very good cooperation. The cities that are interested in doing this are extremely interested. The others, a couple like Calabasas, are still sitting on the fence taking a wait and see, but they're part of the Malibu-Las Virgenes district, so that's the reason why they're sort of holding back a little bit. But for the most part, we've already got approval from Glendale, Burbank, San Fernando tonight. Their committee's already approved it. Santa Clarita requested to be part of it, and because of the way Santa Clarita does business and the way they're situated, we felt that was an appropriate, or the people in the organizational group felt that was an appropriate thing to have them be part of it. So if you have questions, I'm here to answer.
That's why they call you the Great Scott.
That's probably it.
Greg?
Okay. First of all, ditto. And in addition to that, I look at this as, there's strength in unity. And in addition to the strength that we would have in unity to accomplish the coordination of the various services and important issues to these various cities, we would also have the ability to get money from those places that may have some. It would facilitate coordinated activities for obtaining state, federal, and regional grants in support of projects, and as a mechanism to assist in financing the expenditures and activities of the COG. So Bob has described it quite fully, so I won't go any further than that, other than to say I'm the immediate past chair of VICA, and VICA is in support of this.
Thank you. Bruce?
Good afternoon. I'm Bruce Ackerman, the President and Chief Executive Officer of the Valley Economic Alliance. I'm also chair of the CRA-LA, the Board of Commissioners, but I'm not here in that respect today. Yeah, we've been working, the Economic Alliance has been working on the formation of this COG for the last 8 years actively. We've been paying for it, we've been organizing it, we've been working directly with Bob Scott to put this together. He's become the chief driver behind this project. It's to us, when you look at what we've been able to do in the San Fernando Valley of rallying those 5 cities working together, it's a natural evolutionary process to now organize them in such a manner that they can establish and implement some cross-jurisdictional programs. You heard some of these mentioned by Bob and by Greg, but my favorite example is just let's dream for a little bit. Let's say that somebody comes up with the idea they want to improve traffic along the I-5 corridor. That runs from Santa Clarita all the way down to Glendale, passes through 5 of those cities and the county of Los Angeles. Let's say we decide, and this is not a project, this has not been proposed, it's Bruce's dream. Let's say that somebody says, wow, San Fernando Road runs through all 5 of those jurisdictions plus the county as well. It kind of parallels the 5 corridor. What if we decided as a COG that we wanted to improve San Fernando Road and actually make it a secondary arterial support network for transporting goods and services along that corridor? A COG could pull something like that off. They could bond the indebtedness for that project. They could obtain federal grants for a project of that nature. And they already have the jurisdictional cooperation because it involves everybody that's going to be touched by that project. So I think you can see by using that example, there's some tremendous potential that the COG could accomplish, and we really appreciate the City of Los Angeles as being so involved and such a driving force in the creation of this organization. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. David?
Well, we wouldn't be here today without the hundreds of hours that Bob Scott has spent on this for the last 8 years, and I just want to publicly thank him for the incredible amount of work that he's done to get us to this point. It's great that other parts of the city of Los Angeles have the great ability to be able to solve regional problems through COGS, and it's time the Valley got the same rights. So that's why we're urging you for a yes vote to establish Los Angeles as part of the Valley COG that will involve all of these cities and all of these jurisdictions, including the county. I sat on the Valley Transit COG for a few years. And it was an enlightening experience. I sat with Zeb and some of the other folks from various cities and various jurisdictions, and we worked together to do things. And this is exactly what this COG is all about, to solve regional problems on a regional basis. It's a win-win for everybody, and we urge your support.
Thank you. Mr. Fleming, weren't you also on the State Transportation Authority?
Yes.
Thank you.
What else have you
I mean, a lot of other things, but.
What else have you done, David?
But that's one, that's obviously an overseeing body.
It is.
That affects regional, statewide, local issues. That's all.
Absolutely. You can't solve regional problems unless you have a regional organization.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When I first started out in the South Coast Air Quality Management District, I represented the western cities, and it's configured differently in the South Bay cities.
Mhm.
But one of the most efficient things that I have ever seen is going and working through the COG system, because you're able to touch a lot of people at the same
Right.
time and disseminate and gather information
Yeah.
and work on issues much more efficiently, and everybody has an equal voice. And I just think it's a great model.
Yeah, you've got to have the table where everybody that has a voice is there.
Right.
And can be heard and can agree.
I just want to acknowledge the 4 leaders from the valley that have come down in the miserable driving rains that many of us go through all the time, swim down here through the canal of the LA River, the flood control. But I know, Bob, you worked on this for a long, long time, and I commend you for that. I serve on SCAG, and when you go to the SCAG meetings, Los Angeles, big city, small cities, but they respect the fact that we take the time to go and meet and try and work out details. Because a lot of people think, well, San Fernando's small, LA's big, Santa Clarita's small. They don't view it as the big foot coming in to stomp them. It's the cordial hand that's working with them to make it better for everyone. So I want to acknowledge the 4 gentlemen that have come down today. I know Bob and I have spoken about this in the past, the COG to bring this about. But as you say, the San Fernando Valley is more than just one region, Sherman Oaks, Studio City, Woodland Hills. It's that whole region from the Mulholland Drive north, all the way from Glendale, Burbank, all the way to Calabasas. So what this will do, hopefully, will help with the communities, help with the business, help with transportation. But clearly, when you're driving down Chandler, or you're driving down Magnolia, you're driving down from Burbank into North Hollywood, into Van Nuys, into the West Valley, you don't know where you are. You're on a street in the San Fernando Valley. You're traveling down a road, or Ventura Boulevard, when you go through Coinga Pass. You start out and you keep on going down, you end up in Calabasas, you keep on heading out to Valley Circle. So I commend you for the work, the energy, and I know I will pledge my support with it. I'm sure my colleagues will be supportive. But it's all for the betterment of the San Fernando Valley. But all the time and energy, frustration sometimes that's taken place. Mr. Wickham, I know, will be diligently working from our legislative office to help bring this to fruition for everybody's benefit, because we have an issue with jobs, issue with foreclosures, issue with housing. Whether it's the East Valley or the West Valley or the North or South Valley, the same issue. So this particular program, I think, is wonderful, but you folks have really brought it to the forefront. So I want to acknowledge, and I know all of you personally, I want to acknowledge all of you for your effort, your time, and your enthusiasm to make this happen.
I just want to add something to.
Yes, go ahead.
The Valley Economic Alliance is ready to assist this COG in the future, so that you know we'll host it. We'll be the place where everybody can meet, and we'll put out the money and we'll get this thing done. But we'll be able to help run this thing. So it's great.
And if I may, I'd like to also, while we're handing out credit, David Fleming's been on this since way before we started. Mr. Cardenas was with us early on at the time of the earthquake. He was very involved, and he also was a co-sponsor of the original motion here. So,
okay.
Yeah, a lot of people worked on it on and off, but with all due respect, we have to give a lot of credit to you gentlemen, because you've stayed on point. Everybody has a million things we'd like to do. There's a billion things in this world we'd all like to see fixed and corrected, and for everything to run smoother for the benefit of all. But it really takes a lot of effort to stay on the issue and make sure we get to this point, and we have one more step, at least in the city of Los Angeles, to go through after this committee, and I'm sure we're going to get there. But also, it's unprecedented what everything that than as Zion said, but what's even more unprecedented, that's the first time I've ever seen anybody describe the city of Los Angeles as a gentle giant. You almost brought a tear to my eye, Dennis.
You're known for tears in your eyes, Tony.
Usually, yeah, I'm telling you, usually when they refer to the city of Los Angeles being big, it's too big or too this or too that, but in this case, I think that with all the effort that we can put into this, and fortunately, a bigger city like ourselves, we have good people, we have good staff, we have a lot of resources. In addition to that, I'm sure being that this is a Valley Cog, the Van Nuys area is about as central as any place. We have the Van Nuys Civic Center, we have all those rooms, those facilities, we have the Van Nuys City Hall there, which we could, have meetings there as well. So the bottom line is, it's a great opportunity for not only the Valley, but also for the region, and perhaps we'll learn and teach other communities how to do things better. So once again, thank you, gentlemen. Any other comment? Okay. Yes.
Based on your questions earlier, would you like to instruct the CLA to develop a proposal for the alternates policy as part of your recommendations? If the council adopts this, we can go do that work and come back.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Thank you very much.
Hey, when we start having these meetings, we meet Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. Other council members meet it, yeah, so, I mean, somehow to coordinate that with the different schedules, et cetera.
Mondays or Thursdays.
We'll do it on Sunday.
Mondays or
Sundays.
Well, some of the COGs did breakfast, so, most government can do a breakfast.
Sure.
Either way.
Yeah. They just started at like 7:30 and,
Brent's opens at 6 a.m., so that's fine.
Sure.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Is there anybody else here for public comment? Those are the public comment cards that I had before me. All those people having spoken, public comment is now closed on item number 4. So with that, we'll approve the item and direct the CAO to report back on the availability of using the SCAG reimbursement monies for the first year of funding, and in addition to that, as recommended earlier by staff, the additional work that needs to be done. Okay?
Very well.
All right. Thank you. Thank you, gentlemen. Item number 5. Last item on the agenda, number 5.
And item number 5 is a CLA report relative to approving a revised South Bay Cities Council of Governments Joint Powers Authority Agreement.
John Wickham with the CLA. The County of Los Angeles has asked to join the South Bay Cities Council of Governments. City of Los Angeles is a member of that COG, and the COG itself has accepted the county as a member and drafted revised JPA documents. They've asked that all member cities implement these agreements so that the county can join the South Bay COG.
That's a rough talk. You should say yes.
Okay.
They don't
play, huh?
No, they don't
All right. Okay. Any questions from the committee?
That's fine.
Okay. Seeing no questions from the committee, public comment on item number 5 is now open. I do not see any public comment items before me. Public comment for item number 5 is closed. With that, this item is approved, and the CLA report is approved by this committee. Is there anybody here for general public comment? General public comment is now open. Let's speak to items that pertain to this, issues that pertain to this committee but are not itemized on the agenda. Seeing and hearing no one come forward, general public comment for this committee is now closed. This committee is now adjourned. Thank you.